Hello and welcome to another SGR review. I am Chris. I know it's been a while. It's been a crazy summer, so I'm still trying to figure out if I remember how to do this, but we will see how this goes. Anyway, I'm going to be doing a review of a book that contains several small guides in it, and this is courtesy of Prima Games, and I am reviewing this. They're Playing with Power, the NES Classics. Now, right now, this is just a sleeve. I had to keep the book out of it because I have a bunch of bookmarks in it. But as you can tell, the sleeve looks like a classic NES cartridge. Even cooler yet, yeah, you can't really blow on it because it's hard and it really wouldn't do anything. But there's some very nice tactile feeling, even just to the slipcover. I mean, this little strip right here has this. It's all, I don't know if the mic's gonna pick it up, but it's all ridged. Even the little arrow down here from letting you know when you had Nintendo cartridges you had to put them in, all the way down to back here. Just some nice textures. So that is the slipcover that the book comes in, and the book itself actually looks like this. So if you're you got the D-pad on the one side, you also you got your little select button there, and then you've got the two your A and B and the start. So I like that, and when you're filling it up, it's very glossy, so you have some very nice feelings to that. So, what makes this book so interesting is it's kind of a homage to the good old days of the NES, NES things. There's a big feeling, especially when you first open it up. If you ever had a Nintendo Power, looked at a Nintendo Power, had the subscription for that, this right here is a great throwback. So, there are 16, like I said, 16 guides. So it's going to go through all of the little games down here. So just in case you don't want to read it all, it's Excitebike, Ice Climbers, Mario 1, Balloon Fight, Donkey Kong Jr., and then the original Mario game. This is one that most of us all played in the arcades at first. Kid Icarus, Metroid, Zelda 1, Punch-Out. Now this is not Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. This is Punch-Out featuring Mr. Dream. You got Mario 2, Zelda 2, Mario 3, Star Tropics, Dr. Mario. Yes, there's even a little guide on Dr. Mario. And Kirby's Adventure. And what's kind of nice is that, I don't know if the camera will actually pick it up on here, but you can see that they all come out with like little numbers letting you know which page that you're going to be able to find on this. So, the book itself actually starts off with a really nice breakdown and a little bit of history as to Nintendo and what made the NES the hit that it was, and all the little things that went into it, some of the histories on it. Here you've even got a little breakdown of the actual Nintendo itself, the 72-pin connector as far as that's what all the games played. They give you breakdowns on some of the original game designs, that kind of thing. So if you're looking for just that, it's not in depth. I mean, they're not going to break it all down and go in deep into some of the level design strategies that Nintendo had when they were doing Mario and all that. But it gives you a nice high overview of what's going on as far as what was going on with Nintendo. So what you also get is you get kind of like a little breakdown. So here's some of the games that came out when the Nintendo first released. So it's like I said, it's not that long because that's 7 pages, and then we get into Excitebike. Now, the actual guides themselves, so, Excitebike is all of 2 pages, because let's face it, Excitebike was nothing more than a sandbox kind of game where we're just making our own little levels and then racing on them. But, then you get into, here's some Ice Climbers, and what you got is, you get a little summary of what's going on, you get a little bit of a story as to what's going on, and as you kind of go through these, the guide itself, I mean, there's still some pretty good attention to detail on here. But as you're reading through some of this, you're going to get a little bit more history as to each specific game. So, I happen to start bookmarking stuff. So, Legend of Zelda right here. There is this very nice breakdown over here. Gives you some of the story of what's going on with the Legend of Zelda. The other nice thing is, up here, when they're breaking down they give you what the original, the box looked like, some of the box art, but it also breaks down who developed it, who was the director, the producer, the programmers, the writers, the composer, and then it gives you the original release dates, but it gives you those release dates for when it came out in Japan and when it came out in the States. And what's really kind of interesting about that is that you can see that it usually took them just over a year to kind of bring games from Japan over to the States, and that is obviously because they're doing all the translations, they're fixing some bugs. That's why if you watch anything like AGDQ or SGDQ, they generally play on the Japanese release because those tended to have a little bit more bugs, which made level skipping a lot easier. But anyway, so, you got a nice little breakdown of the game, and then obviously it's, pretty kind of like standard guide-ish, what we would come to expect. As I was going through this, I'd be kind of reading through it over coffee and stuff, and there's just this really nostalgic feel of back to the old Nintendo Power days, like that very first page that when you open it up, you're like, oh, Nintendo Power. Now, for most of us that have grown up in the NES Day era, Nintendo Power was kind of how we got our guides. And, they would do a nice big breakdown over at like a level. And then you had to wait till the next month and hope that they would continue on and you'd get these kind of guides. So that's kind of how we got all of our game guides. It was also during the time when we had a lot of companies producing different strategy guides. So, you had the official strategy guide for Zelda, you had the unofficial strategy guides for Zelda, that kind of thing. And I marked this one just because, there's a lot going on with Punch-Out. So it started off as Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. If you really want to learn about why it was called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, you can kind of do some looking at Wikipedia on that. And then after so many years, it's stopped being Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, just went over to Punch-Out, and we lost Mike Tyson and had Mr. Dream. So there is that. About halfway through the guide, a little bit over halfway, you kind of get a breakdown of the late period. So this is, Nintendo's taken off. It's become a very popular system. We're kind of nearing the end of the run of the NES. We're starting to hear about the Super Nintendo, that kind of thing. But you get some of the games and the breakdowns and that kind of stuff that's going on. I think some of the best guide part of this would come down to the Super Mario 3 guide. And that's just because you get all this lovely little artwork as it separates out into the different worlds. So you kind of get a nice little bit of that artwork going on. So you go through all the, like I said, 16 different guides, and it wraps up with a little look at all the NES peripherals. So many of us, I don't know anybody that ever had the Rob, the little robot, but I know plenty of people that had the NES Advantage. This is so that we had turbo buttons. They had the 4-player, the 4-score, which would be the 4-player adapter. Never really saw any 4-player games. The power pad. Now, if you play track and field, I'm sure many of us, I know I did, sat down there and instead of like trying to run in place, we just used our hands and just beat on it. So this is a great look at what's going on as far as what was first coming out on that. So put it right back in the sleeve now that I don't have bookmarks on it and give you a final look at what it looks like. So here you have the nice cartridge playing with power. That, don't forget, you can, if you want, you can blow on it, but it's not going to do you any good. I went through some of the guides. Let's face it, it doesn't take long at this point to play Mario Brothers 3 or Zeldas or anything like that. And the guides themselves are pretty good. But, I would say that I played Zelda a lot as a kid. I played Mario 3 a lot as a kid. So it's just like riding a bike, right? You never really forget. So you learn, all those tricks. And for some reason, they're just stuck back in the back of your head. You're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do that. But if you've never played those and, you kind of want something like that, then you can do pretty well with this. Now, obviously this is not really something a whole lot of people are going to really need, but if you grew up in the Nintendo days, you got a little bit of a Nintendo collection going on, this is a great book to have. There's a lot of nostalgia just wrapped up in this. Just flipping through, even reading through the Punch-Out, I just remember going, oh yeah, I remember all this. There's a lot of that, and getting a little bit of the Nintendo history. Some of it I already knew. Some of it was just like, oh, okay, so that's what makes sense. It is kind of expensive. It's like $44, $45 for this, but like I said, if you grew up in the Nintendo days, this is awesome. It's a lovely book, and it just looks really nice. And I found myself when I first got it, I got home on Sunday, so I opened it up on Sunday. I had my coffee on Monday morning, and I found myself going, as I was finishing up reading through some of this and doing the coffee thing, I was like, I really want Prima to make some more of these. I really want, some of the other games, some of the more in-depth games, Dragon Quest and Wizardry and maybe even Contra 2. This was just so much fun. So if they could make some more, I mean, Nintendo has a huge library of games, so I wouldn't expect them to cover everything, but now you're playing with Power 2, now you're playing with Power 3. It'd be great. I'd love to see that. It also made me realize as I was talking to Carrie, I really wish Nintendo would put out like a giant tome of Power. Just all of their Nintendo Power catalog, all their Nintendo Power magazines just shoved into a book or two, because it's obviously going to be, Nintendo Power had quite a run. So anyway, I'm giving this book like a 4.5 out of 5. I don't know if I could really rate it. It's really entertaining. There's a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of memories. There's a lot of my childhood just after tearing my mouth apart on Captain Crunch, sitting there with my best friends, just playing video games. So that is the Playing with Power, the Nintendo NES Classics book. Comes with 16 little guides, a little bit of history. It's awesome. So check it out if you're a Nintendo fan. With that, I'm out. Peace.